Discernment is one of the greatest gifts we can cultivate in life. It is the ability to separate what serves us from what drains us, to recognize who deserves access to our hearts, and to understand when to speak and when to remain silent. Too often, we assume that honesty means full disclosure, that sharing everything with everyone is a sign of authenticity. But wisdom teaches us that not every thought needs to be spoken, and not every problem needs an audience. There's a difference between being open and being wise. Being open means you allow yourself to be seen, but being wise means you choose who gets to see you. The reality is, not everyone who listens to you truly hears you. Some listen to respond, not to understand. Some listen to collect your words like ammunition to use against you later. Others listen out of curiosity, not out of care. Discernment is the filter that protects your peace, ensuring that your deepest struggles are shared only with those who can hold them with kindness. We have all experienced the sting of misplaced trust. Maybe you confided in a friend only to hear your words repeated by someone else. Maybe you shared your struggles expecting support, but received judgment instead. These moments teach us a hard but necessary truth. Just because someone is in your life doesn't mean they deserve access to your heart. Discernment is the guard at the gate of your soul, deciding who gets in and who stays out. One of the dangers of sharing our problems with the wrong people is that it can distort our perception of ourselves. When we receive dismissive responses or shallow advice, we begin to question whether our struggles even matter. Worse, when people respond with judgment instead of compassion, we start to believe that maybe we are too much, too broken, or too burdensome. But the issue was never with our story, it was with the listener. The right people will never make you feel small for carrying a heavy load. Another reason discernment is so important is because words have weight. When we repeatedly talk about our problems to the wrong people, we run the risk of keeping our wounds open instead of healing them. Some people thrive on negativity and will encourage us to dwell in our pain rather than move through it. Others will minimize our struggles, making us feel like we are overreacting. Discernment helps us recognize when a conversation is leading us toward healing and when it is simply keeping us stuck. So how do we cultivate discernment? It starts with paying attention. Attention to how people respond when we share. Attention to how we feel after confiding in someone. Attention to whether our words are met with care or with criticism. Trust is built over time, not granted freely. It is okay to be cautious about who you let in. It is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of wisdom. We also need to trust ourselves. Sometimes we already know when someone isn't a safe place, but we ignore our instincts because we crave connection. But real connection isn't built on desperation. It's built on mutual respect and understanding. If someone consistently proves that they cannot handle your truth with care, believe them. Protecting your peace is not selfish. It is necessary. At the end of the day, discernment is about knowing the difference between those who want to listen and those who are capable of holding your story with grace. It is about choosing depth over drama, wisdom over impulse, and peace over momentary relief. Not everyone deserves access to your struggles. Share your heart, but guard your soul. Speak, but choose your audience wisely. The right people will never see your vulnerability as a burden. They will see it as a gift. Vulnerability is one of the most powerful human experiences. It is the courage to show up as we are without pretense or perfection. It is the ability to say, this is me, this is what I'm going through without fear of judgment. But vulnerability, when misunderstood, can quickly turn into oversharing. While vulnerability is intentional and deepens relationships, oversharing can sometimes push people away, leaving us feeling even more exposed, unheard, or misunderstood. The key is knowing the difference. Vulnerability is about connection. It happens in spaces where trust exists or is being built. It is about sharing our struggles with the right people, those who can hold our emotions with care and respond with empathy. Oversharing, on the other hand, is often unfiltered, impulsive, and lacks the foundation of trust. It is when we share too much, too soon, or with the wrong audience. Instead of fostering connection, oversharing can leave us feeling disconnected because not everyone is equipped to handle our raw emotions. One of the biggest dangers of oversharing is that it can make us more vulnerable to judgment and rejection. When we share deeply personal struggles with people who haven't earned our trust, we risk receiving responses that hurt rather than heal. Some may minimize our feelings, offer unsolicited advice, or worse, use our words against us later. This can create a cycle where instead of feeling supported, we feel ashamed for opening up in the first place. Vulnerability should feel like a safe release, not a regret. Oversharing often comes from an unfulfilled need, whether it's a need for validation, attention, or relief. Sometimes we overshare because we are desperate to be heard, hoping that if we just put everything out there, someone will understand us. Other times we mistake openness for intimacy, thinking that revealing all our struggles will create closeness with others. But true intimacy isn't built on exposure alone. It is built on mutual respect, trust, and emotional safety. Another risk of oversharing is that it can dilute the weight of our struggles. When we tell our problems to anyone who will listen, we may find that their responses become less meaningful. If we share too much with too many people, we can also become exhausted, repeating our pain over and over without actually moving forward. Vulnerability should be about healing and growth, not about scattering our emotions everywhere in hopes that someone will catch them. So how do we know if we are being vulnerable or if we are oversharing? The key is intention. Vulnerability is intentional. It asks, is this person safe? Will sharing this help me heal? Will this strengthen our connection? Oversharing, on the other hand, is often reactive. It happens in moments of emotional overwhelm without consideration of whether the other person can truly support us. Before we share, we need to pause and ask ourselves, am I sharing to connect or am I sharing to offload? There is nothing wrong with needing to be heard, but we must be mindful of who we let into our emotional world. Not everyone has the capacity to hold our truth with kindness. Choosing the right people means choosing those who listen without judgment, who respect our story, and who create a space for healing rather than just hearing. Vulnerability is a gift, but like all gifts, it should be given with care. At the end of the day, vulnerability strengthens relationships, while oversharing can sometimes weaken them. It is not about hiding our struggles. It is about sharing them in a way that fosters growth, trust, and healing. When we learn to be discerning about who we open up to, we protect both our hearts and our energy. Vulnerability is brave, but so is knowing when to hold your story close until the right moment, with the right people, arrives. There is a quiet kind of power in silence, one that is often overlooked in a world that glorifies constant expression. We are taught to believe that speaking up, sharing everything, and seeking external validation is the path to healing and strength. But silence, when used wisely, can be just as powerful. It is not about suppressing our feelings or pretending that struggles don't exist. Rather, it is about cultivating resilience, self-awareness, and inner peace without always needing an audience. Silence gives us the space to process our emotions before we put them into words. When we are too quick to share our problems, we sometimes say things we don't fully understand ourselves. We hand our emotions over to others before we've had the chance to sit with them. Strength in silence means allowing ourselves time to reflect, to listen to our own thoughts, and to find clarity before seeking external validation or advice. It is about making peace with our emotions internally rather than relying on constant external reassurance. There is also strength in resisting the urge to explain ourselves to everyone. Not every thought, struggle, or pain needs to be justified to others. Sometimes we waste energy trying to make people understand what we are going through, hoping they will see things from our perspective. But the truth is, not everyone will understand, and not everyone needs to. Strength in silence means knowing that your experience is valid, even if you don't put it into words for others to dissect. One of the most powerful aspects of silence is that it helps us build emotional resilience. When we don't rush to share every problem, we give ourselves the chance to develop our own coping mechanisms. We learn to rely on our own wisdom, to trust our instincts, and to find solutions within ourselves. This does not mean we should never seek help or support. It simply means that not every struggle needs to be verbalized in order to be processed. Some of the greatest lessons in life come from sitting with discomfort and allowing ourselves to grow through it. Silence also protects our energy. When we constantly talk about our struggles, we sometimes give them more power than they deserve. Repeating the same problems over and over can keep us stuck in a cycle of negativity, preventing us from moving forward. But when we practice silence, we regain control over our thoughts. We learn to shift our focus from dwelling on the problem to working toward a solution. There is wisdom in knowing when to speak and when to be still. Another strength of silence is that it teaches us to observe more than we react. When we are always speaking, we miss out on the lessons that come from simply listening. Silence allows us to see people for who they truly are. It gives us insight into their character, their intentions, and their ability to hold space for us. Not everyone who asks about your problems truly cares. Some just want information. Silence helps us distinguish between those who are genuinely supportive and those who are merely curious. However, silence does not mean isolation. Strength in silence does not mean shutting people out or refusing to seek support when needed. It simply means being selective about who we let into our inner world. It means choosing stillness over impulsivity, reflection over reaction, and wisdom over unnecessary exposure. It is about knowing when to share and when to hold certain things close to our hearts. In the end, strength in silence is not about suffering alone. It is about understanding that not every battle needs to be fought out loud. It is about trusting that our struggles do not define us, and that sometimes the most powerful healing happens in the quiet moments we spend with ourselves. There is a time to speak and a time to be silent. True strength comes from knowing the difference. What we focus on expands. Our thoughts, emotions, and actions shape our reality in ways we often underestimate. When we constantly dwell on our problems, they seem to grow larger, consuming our energy and clouding our ability to see solutions. But when we shift our attention toward progress, growth, and gratitude, we begin to cultivate a mindset that empowers rather than drains us. The simple truth is this: energy flows where attention goes. Whatever we feed with our focus becomes stronger, whether it's our struggles or our strengths. It's easy to get caught in the habit of constantly talking about what's wrong, our problems, frustrations, and disappointments. While acknowledging struggles is important, repeatedly focusing on them can make us feel stuck. The more we speak about what's going wrong, the more we reinforce its presence in our lives. Instead of looking for ways forward, we unknowingly train our minds to expect more of the same. Energy is like a river. It follows the path we carve for it. If we direct it toward negativity, it will flow there. If we guide it toward growth, it will build momentum in that direction. Think about the conversations you have on a daily basis. Are they filled with complaints, frustrations, and reasons why things aren't working out? Or are they centered on possibilities, solutions, and gratitude? The way we speak shapes the way we think. If we constantly tell ourselves that life is difficult, that we never catch a break, or that nothing ever changes, our brain starts searching for evidence to confirm those beliefs. But when we begin shifting our words, focusing on what is working, what we are learning, and what we are capable of, we start to see opportunities where we once saw obstacles. This concept is not about ignoring challenges or pretending that struggles don't exist. It's about choosing where to place our attention. There is a difference between acknowledging pain and becoming consumed by it. We can recognize hardship without letting it define our outlook. The mind is incredibly powerful, and when we train it to seek growth instead of dwelling in suffering, we create an internal shift that influences our external reality. One of the best ways to redirect our energy is through intentional gratitude. When we actively focus on what we have rather than what we lack, we shift our emotional state. Gratitude reminds us that even in difficult moments, there is something to be thankful for. It helps us break free from patterns of negativity and rewire our focus toward abundance instead of scarcity. When we place our attention on what is good, we naturally attract more goodness into our lives. Another key to mastering this principle is being mindful of the people we surround ourselves with. If we spend time with those who constantly complain, gossip, or dwell in negativity, we will absorb that energy. But if we choose to engage with those who uplift, inspire, and encourage us, our own energy begins to shift. We start seeing life through a lens of possibility rather than limitation. The people we give our attention to shape the direction of our energy, whether we realize it or not. Redirecting our attention doesn't mean ignoring our problems. It means approaching them differently. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? We can ask, what can I learn from this? Instead of saying, I have no options, we can say, there is always a way forward. I just need to find it. These small shifts in attention create profound changes in our mindset. When we give our energy to possibility rather than limitation, we begin to move towards solutions instead of staying stuck in cycles of frustration. At the end of the day, where we direct our attention determines the quality of our lives. If we focus on pain, we will feel more pain. If we focus on growth, we will experience growth. If we give our energy to fear, it will control us. But if we place our energy in courage, resilience, and hope, we will move forward with strength. The power is in our hands, and it all begins with one simple decision: choosing where to place our focus. Because energy always flows where attention goes. Healing is not just about time, it's about placement. It's about where we choose to heal, who we allow into our healing process, and the environment we surround ourselves with. Just as a seed needs the right soil, sunlight, and water to grow, our emotional and mental well-being require the right conditions to truly heal. Too often, we try to mend our wounds in the wrong spaces, among people who don't truly see us, in environments that drain rather than restore, or through habits that numb instead of nurture. True healing happens when we create and seek spaces that support our growth. Not every environment is meant to hold your healing. Sometimes we keep returning to the same people or places that broke us, expecting them to fix what they shattered. We look for closure in conversations that only reopen wounds. We expect validation from those who were never capable of giving it. But healing does not happen in spaces that remind us of our pain. It happens in spaces that make room for our restoration. It requires stepping away from environments that feed our suffering and stepping into ones that encourage our renewal. The right spaces for healing are those that make us feel safe, supported, and seen. They are not necessarily physical places. Sometimes they are found in the presence of certain people, in quiet moments of reflection, or in personal practices that bring us peace. Healing spaces allow us to express our emotions without fear of judgment. They do not rush us to get over it, but instead offer patience as we navigate our journey. They do not invalidate our pain, but remind us that we are more than our struggles. One of the biggest mistakes we make is believing that we have to heal in isolation. While solitude can be a powerful tool, true healing often requires connection, the right kind of connection. Healing happens when we are surrounded by people who uplift us rather than pull us down, who listen rather than lecture, who support rather than shame. Not everyone deserves a front row seat to our healing process, but the right people Those who offer kindness, understanding, and wisdom can make all the difference.